Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Token and Hobbs Show, a Road to Liberty podcast on the Think Liberty Network. We're going to have to get used to saying that now. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, it's Tuesday now. You're ready with the road crew. I'm your host, Token, joined with my buddy, Mr. Hobbs. What is up, my man? How you doing? Are you hanging in there?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. You know, it kind of sucks that it's only a Tuesday because I sure feel like it's a Thursday. The worst thing about the worst thing about going over to the Think Liberty Network as opposed to being our own thing is that I can't bring in my own show or this show with on the roads to Liberty Network anymore, and I'm gonna have to find a way to try and. You know, Think Liberty doesn't have that hard O, so I can't really.
On the road. I mean, it's still the Road to Liberty podcast. You know, yeah. Token and Hobbs, a Road to Liberty podcast on the Think Liberty Network. Speaking of which, thank you, all you Think Liberty folks out there that are listening to our show, giving us a chance. We love you guys. We hope to win you over to being part of the road crew. Our Facebook page just hit 9,000 likes. It's growing daily. Thank you, by the way, to all our boogie friends out there who visited our page the other day and left us some glowing reviews. We love you guys. You are the best.
Yep. You guys really do. And there's Justin right there. Speaking of the boogie boys, Justin, thank you, and all the Boogaloo boys over there at Thick Boog Line for your support the other day.
All our boogie friends over there, we thank you. And you know what? I'm going to open one of these. Wait a minute. What is that?
Looks like you're about to catch the Kung flu, my friend.
the Kung Pao sicken?
Yeah, sweet and sour sicken, the Kung flu.
Yeah, that's what it is, the sweet and sour sicken. You get coronavirus from drinking Corona, right?
Yeah.
Now, is it regular Corona or Corona Extra? Do I get extra sick from drinking a Corona Extra?
I don't know. I always used to call Corona gay porn star beer, so I think you're just as likely to catch AIDS that way.
Oh, I don't know, man. I already like Corona. Corona's good, especially with some lime in it. It's good. I'm gonna get if there's no Token and Hobbs show next week, you guys know why it'll just be the Hobbs show.
Yeah, either that or we got canceled because I just made a gay AIDS joke.
Oh my goodness, yeah. We're gonna get canceled. If we ever get like super famous and endorse a candidate, where there's gonna be a tweet storm about it from the social justice progressive types, just freaking trying to murder us for it, trying to cancel us.
Well, we don't need to.
Carl says alcohol kills the virus. No, you know what? Yeah, well, from what I heard, alcohol kills the coronavirus, and heat kills the coronavirus. So I think the Brits have the right idea drinking warm beer. No coronavirus over there, you know?
Yep.
He's always laughing because I'd go in a bar and I'd get a beer and it would be warm and gross. Like, what the fuck is this? Why are you serving me warm beer? All right? It's not just an American, it's anti-human to serve people warm beer. But little did we know that they knew Corona was coming, and they were just preparing their population for it, right? They were getting them ready to tolerate warm beer so that when Corona came, they'd survive. They'd be the lone survivors in a dead world.
Yep. Being on an island helps.
They're gonna remake the British Empire, dude. But just because everyone else is dead, we all died of Corona.
Oi, mate, you got a license for that expansionism?
Oh my goodness, England in their licenses. Well, anyway, before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that I am going to the Iowa State Convention for the Libertarian Party. I'm going to be there with Think Liberty. We're going to have a table, and we're going to be doing live streams for that event like we did a few years ago for the Omaha Unconvention. There's going to be several guests there. Ken Armstrong's going to be there. Jacob Hornberger's going to be there. There's several presidential candidates who are going to be there, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to get several of them to sit down with us and do an interview. So make sure to check that out. Make sure to, if you're down in Iowa, if you're going to the Iowa State Convention, make sure to stop by the table, say hi, and maybe we'll hang out for a little bit. Right? Hobbs is not cool enough, of course, to go to any state conventions and hang out with you good folks. But hey, I am a man of the people.
And I'm going to ours. I'm going to ours.
Well, you better go to ours. So anyway, that'll be fun. That is, let me check the dates again. February 28th and 29th in Des Moines. I've been to Des Moines. It's a pretty nice city. So it sucks that I have to go to Iowa because Iowa's terrible. Whoever wants to go there.
Yeah, Mark wants to know if we got any, if we had any news on his mayor. I know what you're talking about, buddy, and I did get a response from his staff, and yeah, they're looking at his schedule.
He also says Hobbs is big gay. We all know that. We knew that already. You don't need to tell us that. All right, so let's get into this thing. What do you want to start with? Let's talk about Virginia for a while, because Virginia has been the subject of a few of our episodes. We had the Thick Boob Lines guys on Observations last Friday, and you guys talked for like an hour and a half about Richmond. But yeah. Virginia is still in the news, and they're still grabbing for your guns. And this time they're targeting the First Amendment as a kind of a backhanded way to get at the Second Amendment. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about a certain law, HB 1627, harassment by computer penalty. Now here's what the relevant paragraph that I want to highlight for you guys says. It says, if any person with the intent to coerce, intimidate, or harass any person shall use a computer or computer network to make any suggestion or purposeful or an obscene nature or threaten any illegal or immoral act, he shall be guilty of a Class 1 misdemeanor. Now, I want to point out the key words to here that you got to pay attention to. Words are of an obscene nature. I mean, the key words: obscene, vulgar, profane, lewd, religious, and there's all kinds of vague language in this law that is meant primarily to fine people. Right? Let me take this comment down. But the main purpose of this whole thing is to find people who are talking shit about elected officials in Virginia who are primarily Second Amendment supporters, and then find an excuse to charge them with a crime, right? And once they charge them with the crime, once they get them with the misdemeanor or felony or whatever the case may be, then they can swoop in with the other laws that they're trying to come in with, namely the red flag laws that they are pushing through in Virginia right now. So this is kind of the template that gun grabbers across the country are going to go for from here on out. They're going to label people who are pro-Second Amendment, who are anti-government, who are preppers, who are doomers, whatever the case may be. They're going to label them as insane. They're going to label them as threats. They're going to take their actions, their pro-Second Amendment actions, as veiled threats. And then they're going to charge them with crimes based on that. And once that happens, that's the excuse they need to come and swoop in with the red flag laws and take your guns, right?
Yep.
This is the template. This is the strategy that they're trying to do. This is what they're doing in order to make their gun-grabbing policies, one, legal, and two, look like common sense, right? Because what do we keep hearing about these red flag laws? They're just common sense gun reforms, right? They're just there in order to protect you. They're just there to take guns out of the hands of dangerous criminals, people who you can't trust with the weapon. It's all this is a backhanded weapon to use against you, the citizens, you, the Second Amendment supporter. You, the constitutionalist. You, the libertarian. It's a weapon to use against you in order to take away your Second Amendment rights, in order to disarm you and put you at the mercy of the government.
Yep. It's called moving the goalposts, and that's exactly what they're doing. And you always hear that it's like, oh, we don't want to take your guns. We just want to take guns out of the hands of people that are mentally unstable. It's like, okay, well, that sounds great on its face, but who gets to determine what is mentally unstable? And that's where the whole argument kind of falls apart. Well, of course, they get to deem what is mentally unstable. And at first, it's things like people who beat their wives and people who have been involuntarily committed and, people who torture animals, and, your obvious signs of having a screw loose. And then it moves into people who may not want to pay property taxes, people who think that they need to be able to build something on their own land without getting a building permit or something like that. And people who do everything they can to be as independent as they can. You have a solar panel farm running your house. Oh, you don't want to be connected to the grid? You must be a paranoid prepper type. You collect the king's rainwater. How dare you? That's gonna breed mosquitoes, and you're still just a paranoid prepper type. And then they just keep moving the goalposts and what is and what is not a mental disorder. They did the same thing in the Soviet Union, where it had an official name even in psychological journals. It was like authority distrust syndrome, or something like that. It's like if you don't have absolute faith in the powers that be, then you've got a screw loose upstairs and you need to seek mental evaluation or whatever. So basically what they do is they just use any excuse that they can to label their ideological opponents as, oh, if you believe this, you've obviously got something wrong with you. And then they just keep moving that goalpost until everybody is either, at war in the street, which is what always happens, or, lockstep, too afraid, self-censoring. Yeah.
I mean, that's what this. We all know what the end goal of all this is. All right. I don't believe for a second that the people pushing these laws don't have Australia or English style gun confiscation and gun bans in mind, and this is a step along the way to get there. Right, and they're still harping that to the same old tyrant line. No one's coming for your guns. No one wants to take your guns. You're just paranoid. You're schizophrenic. You don't know what you're talking about. You're just a conspiracy theorist, right? You're just fear mongering. It's the same old line we've heard for years and years and years. But if anything, if we've learned one thing from the Democratic primaries this go around, it's that's a whole lot of bullshit. It's nonsense. I didn't believe for a second before, and I sure as hell don't believe it now. All right, and Kamala Harris to Francis, coming straight out and saying we're going to take your guns.
Yep.
And it was kind of ridiculous because I posted an old meme about Kamala Harris the other day on Instagram about how she was going to take your guns away, right? And this person came like, well, she was only talking about banned guns, all right? Why are you being paranoid? Like, well, yeah, duh. That's the point.
Yeah.
They're gonna ban your gun, and then they're gonna take it. So when you say well, no one's coming for your gun, what you mean is no one's coming for your illegal gun, right? That's what you mean by that.
Yep.
But you want to make people's guns illegal so that you can then come in and take them. But that doesn't count as coming for your gun in that case.
Right. It's again, it's just moving the goalposts. It's like we're not coming for your AR-15s. We're coming for for banned guns. It's like okay, well, what is a banned gun? Oh, well, the AR-15 is a banned gun, so we're gonna come for it. It's like okay, it's moving the goalpost. Yeah, mosquitoes are for feeding the attack bats. Carl Krambeck says, yeah, the bats, they're causing coronavirus when people put them in soup.
Bats aren't real anymore. They're drones too now, just like birds. Come on, guys. What? Let's get with the program here. Birds aren't real. Bats aren't real either. All right.
Animals can't fly.
What are you fucking crazy? It's evolution, science. Think about it. All right. I mean, have you ever seen a real bird fly? No, you haven't, because birds aren't real.
Nope.
No, I mean, there's lots of farms out here in Nebraska. I see chickens all the time. They don't fly. Turkeys, I see them all the time. Wild turkeys just wandering across the road. They don't fly. It's science, man.
Yep.
That's what it is. So yeah, Virginia is just a fucking shit show right now. It was great to see all these Second Amendment supporters come out to stand for the constitutional rights. But at the end of the day, that's not going to be the end of the battle, right?
Right.
That's not it. There's more to be done. The Virginia Democrats aren't simply going to stand around and shake in their boots and go, oh, well, there were 20,000 protesters out there. Guess I'm not going to do what I wanted to do. No. They're just going to ignore you, all right? That they're going to try to ignore you. So for all those Second Amendment supporters, all those constitutionalists out in Virginia, battle's not over. And the battle's not over for us either, all right? We got to stand by our constitutional rights to bear arms. And, we can't let them think that this is the template that they're going to use to disarm this country.
Right. And speaking of protests in favor of the Second Amendment, I saw something on my way home. I'm going to have to double tap to check the dates, but I think Saturday, February 1st, is going to be another supposed large Second Amendment rally in Rome, Georgia. Georgia, my beloved Georgia that I spent 8 years of my life in, is toying around with the same bullshit with the red flag laws and all the other stuff. So, if you're in or around Georgia, go to Rome. I believe it is on February 1st. They're going to have a big hootenanny.
A big hootenanny in Rome?
Yep.
Oh, man. Let's sack it.
Yep.
Let's have another sack of Rome. It'll be as glorious as the last one.
I think I smell a theme coming on.
A theme. That sounds like fun.
The Sack of Rome. Georgia.
The Sack of Rome, Georgia. It doesn't have quite the same flair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was going through the internet and I came across a tweet from everyone's favorite leukemia lesbian teenager.
Breadline lesbian.
Oh, that's the term I was looking for. The breadline lesbian. I'm gonna get in trouble for that one. You're not allowed to make fun of politically active young adults, apparently, unless they don't support your causes. But you guys remember David Hogg, right?
How can I forget?
No one can forget David Hogg. Well, he had a very interesting tweet. I mean, he has a lot of very interesting tweets, but this was the more interesting of them. He goes, "This is a tweet for the founders of the gun violence prevention movement, started centuries ago by almost entirely just centuries ago. Centuries ago." Citation needed. All right. I want the receipts. Show me the receipts. We're not done yet though. Centuries ago, by almost entirely black, brown, and indigenous LGBTQ women and non-binary people that never got on the news or in most history books. We may not know all your names, but thank you. What the fuck? I don't understand. What the hell is he talking about? First of all, yeah. The gun violence prevention movement. Is that what they're calling it now? Violence prevention movement?
Right, because gun control was kind of a flash in the pan. They figured out that Americans, believe it or not, have a big problem with being controlled. So then it was moved on to the common sense and all of the other, they try to try to rename things assault weapons bans, high capacity, and really it is only because of the internet that we were able to disseminate the correct information out there and push back on the narrative. Like, I remember when I was a kid, my dad taught me how to shoot and how to use guns from a very, very young age. And as I grew older, all of his guns were FUD guns, wood stocks, steel, hunting. That was his thing. I wanted pistols. I wanted, banana clips, as they used to be called back in the day. I wanted those army looking guns, right?
Oh
And
man, you wanted the assault weapons.
yes. And
You're crazy, crazy man.
And I never could articulate why I wanted them, other than it's like they're cool. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, they are cool.
But my dad, being the FUD that he was like, oh, what do you need all of that for? And it's like I couldn't get it's like I don't need a 40-round magazine full of FMJs to hunt a deer. That's a terrible choice. But
fuck those deer, man.
And it's like I could never figure out the way to word it until I got out into the world and I got internet access and I was able to peruse like the original intent of the Second Amendment. I'm like, holy shit, there it is. It's not about hunting deer and keeping food on your table, although that is certainly a side benefit of it, that independence that comes with being able to not have to depend on somebody else to put food on your table. That is certainly a part of it, but the true intent of the Second Amendment is to be as well equipped as the people who would dare to try to rule you. And right there it was, boom. I need my 30, 40 round magazines and semi-automatic and automatic rifles if I want to, because the government has it, full stop.
Man, you don't get 40-round magazines in the military or fully automatic rifles.
Yeah.
You get the cheap shit when you're in the military. Especially me. I was in security forces. We got M4s, right? We didn't get the M16s. I always used to laugh at people with the M16s, those giant butt stocks that didn't collapse. I'm like, oh my god, I hate these things.
On my third deployment, we had this girl. Well, first off, our company commander on my third deployment was like 6'4", and he made sure that he got his little M9 that he always had in his shoulder holster, but he also had an M4 sitting in the arms room that he never took out ever, right? And we had this one girl who had this long fucking alphabet soup Filipino name. And then the first two letters were NG, so we just called her NG. She was, I shit you not, 4'11". Her issue rifle?
Oh, I don't doubt it.
M16A2.
Fucking huge. Long as shit. Is that as long as she is?
Yeah. As long as she is tall. And I'm looking at and I'm like, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm about 200 pounds at the time. And I'm just like, can I trade? I feel really bad for her because I had an M4 too. So
right. Yeah, nice short, compact weapon.
Yeah.
Right? A lot more practical.
She's over there looking like a monkey fucking a football trying to shoulder this thing, and it's just it's bad.
No, I don't doubt it, dude. I knew a lot of short chicks in the Air Force. Like, I don't know what it was, but they were like midget size. I'm not even kidding with you. They're like, if it's not dwarf size, if they weren't dwarf size, they were right on the cusp, right? It was like, not to be mean or anything, but say we deployed together and I get shot. I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I mean, I'm 5'6", 150 pounds, right? I'm not a big dude. So so practically everybody in my flight could have no problem picking me up and carrying me out of somewhere if they had to. But you're like 4 feet tall. You may weigh 90 pounds. This is an issue.
Yeah, well, the secret is that those types of people, they never go anywhere alone. You just put one on the other's shoulder and put them in a trench coat. and that's how they have to go everywhere. It's
They
like
stand on each other's shoulders like a cartoon.
Yeah, it's like kids trying to get into a movie theater or something. It's like
Yeah.
a perpetual battle buddy system, and you get like 2 or 3 of these teams, they might be able to drag you off the battlefield. Sure as fuck ain't going to get me with all the crap I was wearing. It's like, just leave me, my time has come. Ethel, I'm coming.
It always annoyed me too how they had different physical standards for men and women. We both do the same job, right? We're both expected to do the same things. So why is one group of people held to a higher standard than another group of people? It seemed to me that everybody should have the same exact standards so long as they're doing the same job, right? Like, I would understand if the standards are different based on career field. Like, security forces have a higher standard than finance troops, right? I would get that. That makes sense to me because finance troops are never going to be tasked with doing anything dangerous at all, right? Like, everyone's like, "Oh, you're in the military, you might be in honest," but if you're like finance or personnel or something like that, realistically, you're never going to be in any kind of danger whatsoever. So yeah, it always struck me as odd how, that we would all be doing the same exact job. We had the same exact expectations placed upon us, but some people expected to do so many push-ups, and another group of people are expected to do so many less. I don't know, man. Always struck me as very strange and unfair, quite frankly.
Equality now.
That's what feminism is all about, right? Feminism, it's all about having equality, and yet you're not held to the same standards. I don't know, man. I know why they do it, but it's still kind of bullshit. And what were we doing? What were we going to talk about next?
Yeah, we kind of went
China.
off.
We were going to get to the topic of the episode. Why I went to the store to get one of these, specifically a Corona Extra, instead of drinking my normal rum and Coke. It's because apparently we're all about to die of a beer virus.
Yes.
Yes, we're all going to die. There's a plague spreading across the world that has everybody scared shitless, right? And if we're not hearing about Kobe Bryant going down in a freak helicopter crash, we're hearing about the coronavirus out in China. And Ben actually sent me this article. I gotta find it again. He actually sent me an article from the Epoch Times out of China. It's all about how China is dealing with the virus. I'm gonna just read you some excerpts from it. Quote, the outbreak of Wuhan coronavirus is far bigger than the official figures released by Chinese public health authorities, who cover up the severity by limiting the number of diagnosis kits to Wuhan hospitals, according to an insider and an independent journalist. He further explained that another reason for the CDC's reluctance to provide diagnoses is that when a patient is confirmed as having been infected with the coronavirus, he or she will be able to receive free treatment. The government will then pay for the treatment, he said. In addition, the hospitals that are qualified to perform tests try to select those patients whose symptoms are mild for diagnosis. Patients exhibiting mild symptoms have a much higher chance of being cured, he explained. By selecting this type of patient for diagnosis, the fatality rate appears much lower than what it is in reality. So this is the way that the communists over in China are trying to deal with the outbreak of this virus. Now, just want to
make Chinese artificially messing with numbers to make themselves look good. This is my shocked face.
Color me shocked, right? I just want to make sure that the sources in this article are anonymous, right? But you would expect them to be. This is a totalitarian state that we're dealing with. So any inside information coming from there is going to be anonymous. Obviously, they don't want you to know who they are because then the Chinese government knows who they are. So what it looks like China is doing is, what it looks like they're doing is they have diagnosis kits that they use to determine if someone is infected with the coronavirus. but they are only releasing so many to hospitals, right? So there's an upper limit to the number of people who can be diagnosed with the virus in any given day, right? So say you give 100 diagnosis kits. You're only going to get 100 cases of coronavirus. It doesn't matter if there's 200, 300, 1,000. You're only going to get 100 because that's the number of kits you've released to hospitals for them to look for. Moreover, they want to keep diagnoses low because if they do, they don't have to pay for the treatment of their citizens.
No, why would you do that when you can just send them home to die?
This is the wonders of government healthcare, right? When government's on the hook for your healthcare, all of a sudden they start making decisions like this. Like, we don't really want to pay for all these thousands of people who have come down with this weird bat virus. So we're just going to say they don't have it. It just disappears. And the magic of government manipulation, it's just no longer there.
Yep, just like all government decrees, all they have to do is write a law that says you're not allowed to have the coronavirus, and poof, it all goes away.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about it. We keep hearing about how much we need universal health care, how much we need the government to take over certain things in our lives. They need to educate us. They need to keep us healthy. They need to ensure that we have a basic wage or whatever the case may be. All these things are designed to keep us dependent upon government to as high a degree as they can possibly get away with. You need healthcare, go to government. You need a wage, go to government. You need schooling, go to government. Go to government, go to government, go to government for everything. And if you don't want to go to government, well, too bad, because you're disarmed. Because if you want protection, you need to go to government to get that too. Right?
Yep.
So
if you say that you don't necessarily want that, well, then you've got a mental disorder. Or what happens when the government doesn't want to pay for any life-saving treatment that you have because they have determined that you have some type of mental disorder and you aren't worth saving anymore. And a lot of people will be like, oh, they would never do that. They would never do that. Whether it's, Obama or Trump or whoever it is, that Bernie Sanders, yeah, that's fine. But once these things get implemented, what about the next guy or the next guy or 6 or 7 presidential administrations down the line? What happens when this thing that started out with the best of intentions and the most benevolence that you can feasibly apply to any type of government program gets into the hands of somebody who doesn't have the best of intentions, who doesn't have the well-being of you or your neighbors or your family at heart?
Exactly. I mean,
guess I'll die.
That's just the thing about it. Why is it that Democrats and progressives and people generally on the left of the political spectrum freaked out so much when Donald Trump was elected? Why was it? Why was it that they were so frightened of it? Why were they so scared? Why were they so scandalized? What's the reason for it? Well, I'll tell you the reason for it. It's because they've been giving the government a bigger and bigger hammer each and every year, every chance they got, in order to empower their messiah to do more and more good on their behalf, right? They stripped citizens of more and more power and gave it to the president because you know what? He needed it to do good things. He needed it to take care of people. He needed it to serve the interests of the people. And then what happened? Their messiah had to leave office. And that was okay, they thought. Everything is good because the next in line to inherit the legacy of their own messiah is going to come in and continue that, right? Hillary Clinton's going to come in and she's going to take over, and it's going to be 12 straight years of progressive policies, and everything's going to be fine and dandy. So you don't have to worry about giving the government this enormous amount of power. But then what happened? Right? The plan didn't quite go the way they thought it was going to. No, sir. Hillary Clinton didn't win the election. Donald Trump did. And now that giant hammer that they spent 8 years creating, Well, Shannon was being created a long time before that, but let's just say the last 8 years, they themselves were the ones making it. A giant hammer that they were using to beat down their opponents. Well, guess what? Now it's in your opponent's hands. You don't like it very much, do you? It's not fun now, is it?
Nope.
When that giant hammer of government is coming down on your kneecaps, huh?
Yep.
Doesn't feel good.
Kind of makes you wonder, hey, what if the government just didn't have so much power that it didn't matter who was sitting in the Oval Office?
Well, see, that would be the libertarian case, right? That would be the case you and I would make. That maybe they shouldn't have this hammer. Maybe they have too much power. Maybe they were never supposed to have that much power. We were, the citizens, the individuals who live in this country, right? We're the ones with rights, right? Not the government. Government doesn't have rights. Never did, right? But we're giving them so much more power. And now that power is in the hands of Donald Trump, you don't like it. So now what are they doing? Now they're putting all their faith in Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or blah, 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 blah. Yes, give the president control over your healthcare, over your education, over everything. Disarm you and put the government in charge of your protection, right? They're not thinking anymore. They think Donald Trump is a fluke. They think that they can't even contemplate the idea of another Republican coming to power and wielding the even bigger stick that they want to give the government, right?
Right. They're if you watch any of the Project Veritas videos that are coming out, some of Bernie's staffers are actually discussing amongst themselves that if Bernie Sanders gets into office, he should just become a benevolent dictator. Well, the dude's like 78 years old. He doesn't have a whole lot of time left. Who's going to be the benevolent dictator afterwards? I mean, even if Bernie dissolved the federal government and got away with being the benevolent dictator for a time, that's not going to last very long. And whether he, passes it off to somebody who's ideologically aligned with him, or we would go back to elections, or however it would be, the next guy might not be a Bernie Sanders ideological clone. And God forbid if it was somebody who is on the opposite end of that ideological pendulum swing. These socialists that were so gung-ho about having one man in charge of everything and rounding up political dissidents and reactionaries and lining them up against the wall and all the other terrible shit that they were talking about in some of these videos, they're going to be the ones that are on the other end of the gun this time. So why don't we just pump the brakes there and stop giving the government so much power? Stop putting your faith in, your heroes in government, and realize that they're people just like us. They have faults, and a lot of them, because they're grasping at power, are deeply, deeply flawed people. There's that saying that goes something like, no man is fit to rule another man, least of all those who aspire to it.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right on that, and it's absolutely bizarre to me how they don't see this, right? And just a couple of weeks ago, we were listening to one of these Project Veritas videos where the guy was saying, "Hey, yeah, free college for all is just a backhanded way for us to indoctrinate people. It's a way to re-educate people with different political views from ours, so that they'll have the right thing." Not wrong thing. Now they'll have the right thing. Right. And that's what college is all about. It's all about getting people who do not agree with them politically to change their minds. It's a re-education camp. That's essentially what he said the plan was about.
Yep. You make the college free, and then you make it mandatory, and then you control the curriculum. And for anybody that the indoctrination doesn't stick, any iconoclasts out there, any people that want to go against the grain, well, they don't necessarily have to take to the indoctrination, because now you've been able to identify them. That is the crux of it. And he literally said in the video, he's like, yeah, the free college for all is just a velvet glove approach to re-education camps. Instead of rounding people up and, chaining them to a desk and shoving propaganda into their face 24/7, you wrap it up in this nice soft little package of, oh, you're getting an education, you're bettering yourself, you're becoming a more educated and productive member of society, and then you just like silver spoon feed them a little bit at a time until the shit starts to taste like sugar, and then you got them hooked.
It's especially funny coming from people who talk about Donald Trump being an outright fascist. Like, okay, if you really believe that, then you think this country is capable of electing outright fascists to the highest levels of power. Think about that for a minute. It's not just that Donald Trump is president, it's that the country is capable of electing authoritarian fascists. This is your argument, right? That the same country that elected Donald Trump apparently is just going to never do it again, right?
Yeah.
It's just that's just a fluke. Never going to happen again. All these people are just going to disappear, and they'll be electing Bernie Sanders for the rest of time, right? Just, they never sit to contemplate the possibility that you get a Bernie Sanders in, you get all these programs in, and then the next guy, another outright fascist, according to you, is elected president, right? Then what does he do with all that power? What does he do with that hammer that you've been building, right?
And if history teaches us anything, it's that the political spectrum moves like a pendulum back and forth. We tend to take these really hard swings to the right and then to the left. If somebody like Bernie Sanders gets elected this time around, or the next election cycle in 2024, then the guy after that is probably going to be like Donald Trump to the next degree. And unlike a pendulum, which eventually settles in the middle, our pendulum just seems to keep going to the edges, to the extreme, a little bit more with each swing, a little bit more, until eventually we are going to get somebody who is an outright fascist or an outright communist, because they'll be a reactionary measure to the last guy who was almost an outright fascist or almost an outright communist. And it's going to take a while to get there, and I hope that I'm dead and gone by then, but knowing my luck, I'll just be old enough to not be worth a shit in a fight.
Well, that's the scary thing about it. I mean, I got a 4-year-old, I got a 3-month-old. I don't want that to be the country they grow up in. Things are calm and peaceful, and then we have problems right now. Things are tolerable, right? I would like things to be tolerable for the country my kids grow up in. Well, while we're on the topic of Bernie Sanders, there was a little bit of a stir in the Bernie Sanders campaign. A certain MMA announcer decided that he was going to tepidly endorse him. So I'm going to play that for you guys. There's Joe Rogan. Now, have you ever listened to Joe Rogan, Hobbs?
I have listened to quite a few of his podcasts. Of course, I had to hear the ones where he's had Alex Jones on.
Dude, I don't listen to Joe Rogan all the time. Usually what I do is every month I'll look through his guests to see if there's one I like, and I'll listen to that one, right? Because when it's a guest I'm interested in, it's always good. But if it's not a guest I like, then it's just 2-3 hours nonsense.
Yeah, his interviews with Tim Pool, like both Tim Pool alone and Tim Pool when he talked to Jack from Twitter, were really good. The Alex Jones ones were
those were fantastic. Those are the funniest things ever. I love those.
And entertaining and also just fantastic to watch. Ones that got a lot deeper than I thought they would were ones that he interviewed Ted Nugent.
Oh, really?
If you haven't seen the Ted Nugent ones, go find them. My God, like Crazy Uncle Ted he's like 72 years old and he's got more energy than a guy a third of his age.
So I'm gonna play what he had to say about Bernie Sanders for you guys.
Who are you gonna vote for in the primary?
I think I'll probably vote for Bernie. Him as a human being, when I was hanging out with him, and I believe in him. I like him a lot. What Bernie stands for is a guy who, well, look, you could dig up dirt on every single human being that's ever existed if you catch them in their worst moment and you magnify those moments and you cut out everything else and you only display those worst moments. That said, you can't find very many with Bernie. He's been insanely consistent his entire life. He's basically been saying the same thing, been for the same thing his whole life. And that, in and of itself, is a very powerful structure to operate from.
So that was Joe Rogan on Bernie Sanders.
Consistently shitty, consistently communist. You know what? Just because the guy's consistent and just because he's got a likable personality doesn't mean that his ideas are good, and it doesn't mean that he would be good in that job. And if you want to talk about digging up bad moments from history, you've got so many. Like, he had a couple of papers that he wrote when he was in college talking about how women have rape fantasies and how sometimes rape is okay. His breadline comment is just like one that you
he said something like, people think breadlines are bad, but breadlines are good. Because in countries with out breadlines, people don't get food. Whereas if you have breadlines, poof, food is just everywhere for you. You just gotta wait for it.
Yeah, it was a little bit taken out of context. I mean, he's not necessarily saying that the existence of breadlines is a good thing. What he was trying to say, I think, was that when there are breadlines, that means that the government is helping people. When there are no breadlines, people are starving. But Bernie,
that's not true.
That's not true
at all.
Exactly. And then he's also had the one where it's like, you've got too many types of deodorant out there, and his
oh, fucking Bernie. That's the funny thing. There's a famous picture. I think it was Boris Yeltsin. He flew over to the United States, like the first time a Soviet leader came to the United States, toured a grocery store, and was absolutely amazed by it. Because just an average grocery store in an average American town, stocked shelf to shelf with food, affordable food.
Affordable food. The variety was what really blew his mind. When him and Ronald Reagan were just like, hey, let's go to the grocery store, and he goes in, and it's just like, you guys got 16 different kinds of saltine crackers. My God, that's like the most bland thing on the planet, and you've got your choice of 16 different kinds of them. It's like, welcome to capitalism, dude. Jesus.
Yeah, in communism, we just have crackers. Cracker brand crackers.
Yep.
And that's all you got. I mean, in America, you got like a dozen different brands to choose from. That's the amazing thing about it. But yeah, this joke, because Bernie Sanders decided to cut up this interview and post and tweet it, right? And you see this thing, and it's doesn't seem to me like it should cause any kind of a stir. But oh my goodness, apparently Joe Rogan is like a terrible human being. And you know what? I don't listen to every Joe Rogan podcast. I listen to very few, actually. They're really long. Not all the guests I enjoy. But when I do listen to a Joe Rogan episode, if it's a guest I enjoy, I really enjoy them. All right? Put me down as a guy that enjoys Joe Rogan's podcast because he's great at conversations. That's what he does. Right? He's not an intellectual. He's not the deepest thinker in the world. I wouldn't use him as a substitute to actual like philosophers or economists or deep thinkers. I wouldn't use him for that. But what he's good at doing is felicitating a conversation, right? Getting information out of people. Who is that guy from Google who released that dossier and it caused a big story?
James Damore.
James Damore. We talked about him on the show a long time ago. I think that was like back in episode 3 of the show. It was a while ago. But James Damore, he had him on the show, and you could tell that this is a shy, socially awkward dude who you need to get him to open up, right? And you can tell that from the interview. But Joe Rogan is such a good conversationalist that he got him to open up and speak frankly. That's what he's good at. That's what you listen to his show for. And Joe Rogan's one of the most harmless dudes you'll ever listen to, right? He doesn't express very many controversial opinions. He's a centrist. He's a center-left dude. He's about the most center-left dude you can think of. Oh my goodness. He endorses Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders tweets about it. Oh, hell broke. I want to read you some of the tweets that I was going through the video on Twitter looking for replies to it, and I just kept finding really crazy ones. Here's one. It's been
open the salt mines.
What was that?
Open the salt mines.
Oh, good. Here's one. It's been 7 hours. Why is this tweet still up? Every moment it's up, our LGBTQ plus friends feel unsafe. Unsafe. They feel unsafe because Joe Rogan said he might maybe consider thinking about Bernie Sanders. Because of that, they feel unsafe. That's dangerous. What's the tweet gonna do? Is it gonna pop out of your phone and punch you in the face?
Yes. Yes. Joe Rogan personally is going to show up at some gay guy's house and put him in a chokehold.
If I gotta tell you, if these people saw Joe Rogan just out in the street walking about, would they actually feel unsafe?
No, they'd probably be like, Joe, I want to get a selfie.
What do they think he's going to do? Like, he's just gonna attack them? He's just like a wild animal? He's just gonna I'm high on DMT, I'm gonna fucking kill everybody. Oh, where are all the gay folks at? I'm gonna strangle them.
My gaydar is pinging. I'm gonna kick some fairy ass.
Like, what do they think is going to happen? What are they expecting? Right? They're afraid. They feel unsafe. Why? Joe Rogan's one of the most harmless dudes on the planet. I mean, this guy's one of the most soft-spoken dudes out there. He barely challenges guests because he just wants to have a cool, chilled, relaxed conversation with all of them, right? He's one of the most accommodating hosts I've ever heard on a podcast. That's one of the things people like about him. So why on earth would you ever feel unsafe? Because he said he might vote for Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders made a video about it.
I don't even understand. Like, are they feeling unsafe because Joe Rogan, or are they feeling unsafe because Bernie Sanders?
As if Bernie Sanders is dangerous.
No,
Bernie's an 80-year-old dude.
He's an old dude, but I don't think Bernie Sanders has ever had an anti-LGBT LMNOP plus fucking whatever the acronym is now thought in his life. He was woke before woke was a thing, and he like Joe said in the video spot there, he has been amazingly consistent his entire life, and I will give that to him. He doesn't flip flop on his position. Now, granted, his positions are garbage, but he's been consistent with them, and one of them has been things like marriage equality and all that other stuff that they put so much stock into. So, and Joe Rogan too, he's also on board with that too. So I personally think that this is part of this Sink Sanders conspiracy that's going into the DNC right now. Because you had Elizabeth Warren come out with her bullshit line about Bernie.
We should have talked about that.
Yeah, Bernie says that a woman can't win.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah, Bernie says that I can't win. And then there's like all the sexual assault or sexual harassment stuff from his staffers. There's just all of this dirt just very suddenly being dug up about Bernie Sanders a few months out from the primaries.
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
When he pulls ahead in the polls.
All this stuff seems like it could be very real. I mean, wouldn't you expect this from the woke crowd? right? To just turn like that on one of their idols. I mean,
Yeah.
you would expect this from them, but I didn't even finish the tweet. I didn't even finish it because she finishes, I set a timer to comment on this post every hour until it is removed. Oh, the fucking derangement of these people. I got to read a few more. I got to get through a few more of these. This one's from a girl named Maddie. I volunteered for your campaign in 2016 because I was inspired by your vision for the future. Even though Warren is my girl in 2020, you were always a close number 2. No longer. Signal boosting and openly transphobic misogynist is unacceptable and counter to progressive values. Now, transphobic means whatever the hell you want it to mean at any given time, all right? So that didn't even mean anything to me. The transphobic stuff they're talking about with Joe Rogan is the fact that he doesn't think that biological men should fight biological women in MMA fights. How awful. The monster. What a terrible human being. That is his terrible transphobic comment. That is a terrible transphobic position right now. That apparently it just makes him a horrible monster. But what about the misogyny charge? What? Misogynistic? What? Excuse, you're gonna have to provide me some good evidence on that one because I don't know.
I think she's just drinking the Kool-Aid on that whole Bernie Sanders says that a woman can't win comment.
That might be it, but it also might be just that once you accuse somebody of one thing, you gotta accuse them of all the things, right? So you can't just accuse someone of transphobia, right? They gotta be a transphobe, homophobe, misogynist, racist, Nazi, Islamophobe, xenophobe. They got to be all the things.
Literally Hitler.
They cannot just be one thing. They have to be all of the things, right?
Because that's what intersectionality is.
Exactly.
Intersectionality.
There's more. This one from someone named Alexa, a blue check mark. I really like Bernie and am disappointed to see his campaign boost Rogan, who has made some very anti-trans comments. I really hope his campaign reconsiders. Here's another one. And you're proud of this endorsement? Maybe you should Google him. There is nothing about this man that's good for this country. His bigotry is blatant. No one should back a candidate who gladly accepts endorsements from people like Joe Rogan. Says a lot about Bernie Sanders, though. Here's another one. Guys, Rogan clearly wants Bernie and Tulsi. He had endorsed her and also said he'd vote for Bernie. Only them. Everyone else can fuck off, quote unquote. That should encourage a union, not a divide. This is good. Oh, that's actually one that's in favor of it. Yeah. I don't know why I copied that one. That's a good one. Here's another. Deeply disappointed to see you celebrate this. In addition to being unapologetically transphobic, Rogan pals around with Alex Jones and gives him a platform on Rogan's show. This is inexcusable. Oh, no. The horror. He has bad man I don't like on the show and talks to him like he's a human being. No. And I just gotta say, those are some of the most hilarious podcasts you'll ever hear. If you haven't listened to them, the Alex Jones podcast and Joe Rogan are just fucking fantastic. Go listen to them. They're great.
Right. This humble water filter salesman from Texas who is only concerned about saving the amphibians and their ecology and ensuring that a vital link in the food chain is not corrupted by Globo Homo. Save the frogs. I too am a huge proponent of amphibian heterosexuality. Nay.
That just means you're all the things now too.
Nay, I am a huge proponent of amphibian heteronormativity. Save the frogs.
Amphibian heteronormativity.
Yes.
Oh my God, yes. That's what we need more of. But yeah, apparently Joe Rogan has just about everybody on his show. He's had Milo Yiannopoulos on there. He's had Joe Rogan on there. He
is Joe Rogan.
What the fuck?
I think your Corona Extra is starting to go to your head.
Oh no, it's the virus, dude.
Yes.
I'm starting to lose my goddamn mind. Is what's going on. The longer we talk, the more sick I get, the more crazy I get. I'll start foaming at the mouth any second now. He is Joe Rogan. But yeah, he's had all kinds of political figures on his show, and he talks to them all like they're human beings. Shocker, I know. And if some of these people would actually listen to the Joe Rogan show every now and then, they might realize that all this virtue signaling and pearl clutching is really just a bunch of bullshit. They might come to that realization because, yes, it is. It's fucking ridiculous nonsense. And you should all feel ashamed and embarrassed by jumping on this Joe Rogan's a terrible human being bandwagon. Just stop. No one's impressed by it. Nobody cares about your stupid virtue signal. But you know what? If all of this sinks Bernie Sanders, oh well. I won't cry over the failed Bernie Sanders campaign because his supporters were too dense to realize that an endorsement from Joe Rogan is a fantastic thing for him. You know, if you want Bernie Sanders to win, this is good. Not bad, but you're too stupid to understand that because you're so wrapped up in this nonsense about him being a transphobe because he doesn't think that biological men should be allowed to beat up on biological women in an MMA match. That's what makes him an evil human being. That's what makes him Hitler, right? That's what makes him a transphobe. That's why you need to cancel him. That's why you're throwing away your support for Bernie Sanders. Oh well. Well.
At this point in the primary, we've still got like a dozen people piling out of the Democrat clown car. And right now it's a numbers game. And Joe Rogan has the biggest podcast reach in the world. He's got the biggest audience. I think, honestly, more people probably listen to Joe Rogan than watch all of cable news combined, easily. So at this point, as far as being a numbers game with the primaries, a Joe Rogan endorsement does nothing but help the Bernie Sanders campaign. But they've got their noses so far up their own asses, huffing their own farts on this progressive nonsense, this wokeitude, this intersectionality, that they just, it's impulsive at this point. They just can't help but just like virtue signal, activate, throw it up in the sky, and tell everybody like, oh, Joe Rogan, he's an evil, misogynist, transphobe, blah, 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 istophobic, phobophobe. And, great, shoot yourself in the foot, please.
Before we go, I just gotta play because you reminded me of this. I gotta do it, man.
It's a good way to end the show.
I believe some people still don't drive hybrids. I know. It's like Earth to America. Hello. Simple stuff here. Go. Well, from now on, I'm only gonna associate with other hybrid car drivers. Everyone else is just ignorant. Good for you.
Yeah.
At least we're smart enough to know better. Thanks. We're a little more progressive and ahead of the curve here in San Francisco.
Oh God, I love this show. This is every one of these pearl clutching asshats.
So much better here with intellectuals, isn't it, boys?
That isn't smug. It's smug.
Smug.
Hybrid cars make better for emission levels, but people who drive hybrid cars are the leading cause of smog. You get enough smog in the atmosphere, and you know what that leads to? Global laming. Thanks to your gay little song, South Park is now the second smuggiest city in America. This is the South Park News Weather Bulletin. It looks like we have a smug alert here in South Park.
George Clooney's acceptance speech?
Did you hear it? He talked about how people in Hollywood are ahead of the curve on social matters. He even took credit for the civil rights movement. Look, the point is, the smug from his acceptance speech has been slowly drifting north since he gave it, and is headed straight for the supercell. The South Park and San Francisco smug is already at critical mass. If it gets hit by George Clooney's acceptance speech, it will be a disaster of epic proportions. That's it. That's the last one. Keenan?
Okay, we got to cut it out right there. But oh my God, South Park's a national treasure. Can I just say that South Park is like the greatest show on earth? I gotta thank them every day for existing in this crazy, crazy world. All right, everybody. I think that's gonna wrap it up for us. That was a lot of fun. The if the Mexican beer virus doesn't kill us by next week, we will be back for another episode of the Token and Hobbs Show. Hobbs has a guest on Friday. Who are you talking to on Friday?
I will be talking to Tara Scubella, my partner from Naked and Afraid, who is going to be going over women's hygiene and sexual health as far as a grid down scenario goes. Seems like a really weird topic to go over, but if you think about it, if you have an economic or social collapse and you don't have access to a doctor, what happens if you get some kind of sickness down there? Women have a lot of special needs in that department, and I think that's something that gets overlooked in the prepper community a lot.
That women want to boog too, right?
Yeah.
And this episode is all for the women boogers who, want to boog and take care of themselves at the same time, right? That's going to be, that's a very important episode. Don't forget the lady boogaloos, boogers?
Boujahideen.
The female boogahadeen, they want to boog too. They got to take care of themselves, which is what Hobbs is going to talk about on Friday. And I'm going to have Ben spliced in clipped from their Naked and Afraid episode because it's an absolute treasure and I love it.
No, it's not. No,
it is.
No.
I want to know what being bitten by an ant down there feels like.
Awful.
Well, you're going to have to explain it on the show because I'm going to be asking questions the whole time. And I expect an answer.
I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about...
You're here to talk about whatever the audience wants you to talk about, Hobbs.
You're not the audience.
Well, I will be on Friday. I'll be the audience then, and I'll ask you questions. All right, everyone. Remember, we're part of the Think Liberty Network, so if you want to hear this show on an audio version or on YouTube, you have to subscribe to Think Liberty. You got to go to Think Liberty, their website, think-liberty.com. That's where all the Think Liberty Network episodes are, including ours. So go there, subscribe, so you can hear our beautiful voices as many times as you want, or at least 3 times a week, because that's how many times that we make this show. All right, everybody. Anything else you want to say, Hobbs, before we say good night?
Stay strapped or get clapped.
Stay strapped, get clapped, and remember to stay sane because the world, as we've demonstrated, will not do it for you. So if we're back, if I survive this virus I got from this Corona can, we will be back here, same time, same place, next week. Good night, everybody.